All right, welcome everyone to Google Drive Basics. My name is Thad Jesperson. I'm your trainer for today. And today we're going to be covering a number of different things in Google Drive. We're going to be essentially going over the user interface, and we're going to be talking about all of the different features that Google has prepared for us to make it easier to keep our files and our folders in line. The first thing that we'll talk about is what is Google Drive and how does it work? The most important thing to understand about all things Google is that it's not really happening on your computer. And that may seem strange to you if you're looking at your computer monitor and you're interacting with Google Drive or Google Docs or Google Sheets with your mouse or your keyboard. But the reality is we have to have a browser open. A browser is our link to the internet. If we have an internet connection and we're using our browser, and by the way, always use Google Chrome because that's the browser that works best. It's optimized for all things Google. Um, with that browser, you can then access the Google server farms. So think of a Costco warehouse times four, floor to ceiling, top of the line computers, and these data centers, these Google data centers, sometimes called server farms, are all over the world and they're redundant. So my Google account, your Google account, is probably on two or three different data centers, and that information is shared back and forth. So what we're talking about here is cloud computing. So what is Google Drive and how does it work? It works in the cloud through the internet, not on our computer. Even though we may see it on our monitor, and yes, we'll be able to make clicks with the mouse or strokes of the keyboard to interact with it. It's essentially sending little data packets, ones and zeros, back and forth at near the speed of light through the internet, through our browser again, to the Google server farms where the data is changed, modified in some way, at almost the speed of light, and then it comes back to us. So it's important to understand that that's how that works, because you'll hear me today talk about Google Docs being only about 1/100th the power of Microsoft Word. Or stated differently, Microsoft Word's 100 times more powerful than Google Docs. And Microsoft Excel, in its modern form, is about 100 times more powerful than Google Sheets. And the reason that is because the Microsoft versions that we use that are installed on our computer are actually on our hard drive. Whereas all things Google, as we mentioned before, are in the cloud and the little data packets are going back and forth. So they actually make it a much smaller, less robust program. So there's not so much data going back and forth. Part of the interesting thing about all things Google is a couple of things. One, you never have to click save anymore. We used to do that all the time with Microsoft. Oh my gosh, I forgot to save this document I'm working on for school or for work, and the power went out, or my hard drive failed, and I've lost that document. Well, other than just maybe the last few seconds of something in Google, if your computer falls into the poolside or something like that, or you spill your coffee on it or something, and it stops working, you'll only lose a few seconds of data that you were entering into your Google Doc or if you were working in your Google Drive, because that stuff is all stored in the cloud in the Google server farms in our Google account. So that's one thing. You never have to push save. The other thing is, if you have 2013 on your computer, and there's still a lot of we're talking about Microsoft Office 2013. There's about half of the school district, even 11 years later, is still using Microsoft Office 2013. If you've gotten a new computer in the last 4 or 5 years, like I have, most of us now have Microsoft Office 2016. And the thing is, because Microsoft Office is loaded on your hard drive, you're going to keep 2013 or 2016 until either A, you get a new computer, or you download the new software from Microsoft, maybe with the help of the San Diego Unified Help Desk, and then you upgrade it. Well, with all things Google, you don't ever have to upgrade anything because Google does that for you. I remember a couple years ago, I was teaching a Forms class, Google Forms, at 9 a.m., went to lunch, came back for my 1 p.m. Google Forms class. This was during COVID when we were teaching a lot more people more often, and the entire user interface had changed. The whole settings had changed. About 30 to 40% of Google Forms had changed while I was at lunch because Google could change it anytime they want to. So keep that in mind. So you never have to save anything. Google can be changed at any time. And because data packets are going back and forth, and we at San Diego Unified are behind the San Diego Unified firewall to protect us from phishing expeditions, people trying to get our information or to hack into the computer system to hold the district hostage or whatever. Um, because we have a firewall to protect us, sometimes those data packets going back and forth get stopped. What am I talking about? If I sent a message to each of you, or let's say I shared a folder in Google Drive with everyone who's here today, one of you might get the notification in 30 seconds, or even 2 or 3 seconds. One of you might get it in 6 or 8 minutes. One of you might get it after 20 or 30 minutes. All of those examples have happened in my classes over the years, and it has to do with data packets of information going back and forth through our firewall of the district. And sometimes, according to the IT people, our firewall will slow things down just because of volume of traffic. And it takes a while for these things to happen. So we're going to be talking about that as we go through all things Google Drive today, as we kind of go back and forth between different Google programs and back to the drive. As we save things, we change things, we go back to Google Drive and see if it's changed in our drive. And we'll notice that sometimes it's very quick and other times it might take several minutes, but that's the reason why. So we're going to go over the Google Drive user interface and kind of cover all the different things that are there so we can become familiar with it. And just know that interface changes every few weeks. And we're going to talk about some of those changes. We're going to definitely go over how to upload files and folders and also how to organize those files and folders. And you noticed before when we were talking about Microsoft Word and Microsoft Office, I talked about downloading. Yeah, anytime you take something out of the cloud and you put it into your computer's memory system, your hard drive or whatever, that's downloading. Like you go to a restaurant, download our menu, and then you can order straight from there. You don't have to talk to anybody. That's great. Well, in all things Google, they always talk about uploading because typically if you have a file or a folder or something that's on your computer and you want to put it in Drive, you're essentially uploading it to the cloud or to those Google server farms. So remember, we're uploading to Google. Can you download something from your Google Drive? Absolutely, and we'll show that as well. So we're going to get all into organizing files and folders. I have lots of recommendations for that. Of course, there's so many variations of how you can organize that stuff. You have lots of choices. But sometimes when we're new at this, it makes it difficult because there are so many choices. It's easy to get confused and forget how things are organized and why does it look like this when last time it looked like that or whatever. We'll go through that and we'll try to dispel some of those concerns that some of us have. All right. So we're going to talk about the storage limits of our Google Drive. If you have your own private Google Drive like I have associated not with my sandy.net email address, which is part of the sandy.net Google domain, like all of us have, but I also have one associated with my Yahoo email, my personal email. And so I have my own personal Google Drive. And I'm going to show to you that on the private one, Google's always trying to sell you more memory space to store stuff. But the school district gives us unlimited. I will show that to you. OCR practice, optical character recognition. We're going to see how Google Docs in conjunction with Drive allows you to take like a PDF, something that you normally can't edit without paying for extra software to do so. Google Docs and Google Drive will allow you to bring in a PDF and to be able to not only be able to read everything on that PDF and put it into Google Docs, but then you can also modify it. You can change the formatting and do different things. And it works perfectly in some ways. In other ways, it doesn't work at all. And we have a good demonstration of that coming up. So we'll be talking about how to find, recover, restore files. We'll get into that. We're going to show the new file search feature that's been around for about 1.5 years now, and they keep adding more features to it, and it keeps getting better and better. It actually works really well. And we're actually going to be taking a Microsoft Word document. That's not a Google product, it's a Microsoft product, and also a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And we're going to turn them into their Google counterparts. And we're going to convert them into what's known as Docs format. It's a little confusing because it sounds like, oh, you're going to turn my Microsoft Excel thing into a Google Doc. No, just the Docs format means it'll look like a Google Sheet, and we'll show you how that works. All right, there's other navigating options. The file tree feature, we'll show you that. It just helps when you're trying to search for things so the screen's not constantly changing and giving you overload of data. We'll talk about Google Drive notifications, and then of course we'll talk about file sharing in Google Drive. All right. The next thing that we're going to share with you is that there was a link on the email sent to you today for our San Diego Unified Office Skills Training YouTube channel. And I have selected the videos here, and so it has the latest ones that are here. And you can see here's one from 10 days ago, a month ago, a month ago. And then they just get older and older and older. And I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of videos here. I've got tips and tricks videos that are only 10, 15, 20 minutes long. But I also have all of the training. So for example, here's a Google Forms Basics training. That's an hour and 21 minutes. And there's a number of ones that are in there. So if you want to learn more about Google Drive, you might want to go back to a different Google Drive training that's there. We're in the process of making a new Google Drive video right now. And so these videos are here for you to watch at any time. You can watch them in the evening, you can watch them when you're at work, you can watch them whenever you need to kind of brush up on all things Google and Microsoft. So just know that those are available to you. So this is something that's kind of new, and I had this turned on earlier. I'm about to turn it off, but this is dark mode. What does that mean? If you're staring at a screen all day and your screen is bright, it can be kind of hard on the eyes. And so Google recently offered dark mode. And how do you work with that? Well, you just go into settings, and then down here where it says appearance, you can click on dark. I have mine on dark right now. I'm going to turn it back to light so you can see the way that it normally looks. By default, it should be light, but you do have dark as an option, which is pretty cool. So let's get out of there real quick. So this is my Sandy.net Google Drive. And it looks a lot like my Yahoo personal email Google Drive that I have, which is right here. You can see that we have a number of different features over here on the left. And then we have a bunch of folders here. And then underneath the folders, we have a bunch of files. What's the difference between a folder and a file? A file can be a Google Doc, a PDF, a Microsoft Word doc. It could be a picture. Any kind of something like that is called a file. And we usually store those in folders. And so here's my Sandy.net one. I know this is my Sandy.net one because there's a picture of me there. And as I hover over it, it has my school district email address. But I want you to notice something just right off the bat. Over here, it says storage. It says I have 29.03 gigabytes. That's how much I've used. So by and large, your storage of anything Google, a Google Docs sheet form, doesn't take up any storage. But if I'm storing Microsoft Word documents or Microsoft Excel documents or something like that, spreadsheets, then that's going to take up storage. The reason mine is so high is because I put all of my videos that I make for the training that I do on there. And so 29.03 gigabytes is a lot. And I will show you that over here with my personal one, and again, it's got a picture of my wife and I. It's associated with my Yahoo account. I've only used just less than 3.5 gigabytes, not 29, of 15. And so they're already trying to sell me more storage. So there's the primary difference right there, is that our Sandy.net Google Drive gives us free storage. So we can store as much as we want to in there, which is very handy. And that's something that I appreciate very much. Another thing is, I told you that the very smart men and women engineers at Google at any time can upgrade something. What are we talking about? This button used to be red about 5 or 8 years ago, and then it turned blue. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, it turned white. Why do they keep changing it? Maybe because of what's in there. They just wanted us to notice. This home button here showed up about a month and a half ago. Before that, it was called priority. I never liked priority. I taught it in the classes and shared a little bit about it, but I suggested that it might disappear one day because it's not very good. And guess what? It did get replaced by home, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later. But I'm guessing that this is probably going to disappear too, just because it's kind of annoying the way it's set up. And we'll talk more about that as we go through all of the user interface. But activity and workspaces showed up about a month and a half ago as well. So all kinds of different things. You might recall, if you've been using Google Drive for any length of time, that there used to be a suggested area up here. What does that mean? There'd be like different Google Docs or maybe folders or Google Sheets or forms that you're working with. And if you use those things a lot, then Google would just put a bunch up here and say, hey, suggested, you work with this 3 times today, or you worked with this twice last week or something, and you could click on it. Before it was suggested, it used to be recent. But the problem with either of those is it was only as many tiles, like look at these 5 right here. It would only about 4 or 5 would fit across there, depending on how zoomed in you were. And what happens if you were working with 6 things that day? Well, how are you going to find it? Because it only holds 5. And so it was kind of annoying. People didn't like it. They didn't use it. They finally got rid of it. But what they did do, and this is important to understand, is that all things Google, they're trying to make it better. At the end of the day, Google's trying to please us, the customer that is using their products. So look what they did. They actually created a recents folder down here. In fact, I'm going to click on that just right away. And when I do, remember that all these choices here can affect what we see here in kind of like our desktop. So think of this as kind of like your desktop where you're going to be working on things. And these are just a bunch of different folders, if you will, or maybe just links to get somewhere. And yeah, here's our search up here. And there's some other features that we're going to go over. But I'm just going to click on this recent and let's take a look at how it's organized. So here's today, some things that I've worked on. So here I can see a picture, a thumbnail of the this might have been where you went to sign up for this class on the Google Docs calendar, where I have links to the professional learning website where you can sign up and register for all the classes. And then here are some other spreadsheets. I know they're spreadsheets because I see the Google Sheets icon here, and I can see the names of them up there. And if I want to know what that name is, I can just hover over it. But I want to point out something. We're seeing a preview here. Why don't we have a preview here or any of these other ones? We see a preview here with this Google Doc, and that's what it is. That's what these corner little icons are. It tells us what it is, a Google Sheet, Google Sheet, Google Sheet. Well, this is a Google Doc too, but it's not showing us a preview. In fact, if we scroll down, none of these are, only the first one. So again, we're looking at this on our monitor through our browser. So this is my browser. I've got a bunch of windows that are open up here, or we'll call them tabs, okay? There's my email. There's the one I'm working on, sandy.net Google domain. Again, here's my Yahoo Google domain. And so because I'm connected to the internet and I'm using my Google Chrome browser, and just a reminder again, please do not use, unless you want to be very disappointed, any kind of a Microsoft browser or a Firefox browser. Yeah, those browsers work great for a number of things, but not all things Google. Google is upgrading and changing stuff so often, but they never add any new features to any of their products unless their Google Chrome is already optimized to work with it. What does that mean? That means if you were to use voice typing, for example, in a Google Doc, that's where you just talk to your computer and it starts typing out right in front of you all the words you're saying, just as quickly as I'm saying them now, period, new paragraph. And then I start the next paragraph and start saying things and it will write it all down. If you're using Firefox, that may not work because Firefox is not optimized to use all of the features. So make sure you're in the Google Chrome browser when you're using that. All right, so because we're going back and forth across the internet to the Google server farms at near the speed of light, little packets, data packets, well, made up of ones and zeros, sometimes it takes a little while. So this could, right here, could have shown us a little preview in the thumbnail at any time I've been talking, but it hasn't. Sometimes we can force it by refreshing the page. That's what this little button here is. So I'm going to click it and see what happens real quick. Ah, okay, so there, now we've got a few of them. So I can see there's a lot more writing here. So that's interesting. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. We'll be doing that a number of times today. But again, here's the recent. So here's the ones from today that I was working with. Here's ones from earlier this week I was working with. And so this is exactly what you would imagine a recent folder would look like earlier this year. And then it gets older and older and older as we go down. That's pretty helpful. So again, why did they create this recent folder? Because they used to have recent appear, then they made it suggested, and then they just decided to create a recent folder just to make it easier. They got rid of suggested. So now it's not in your way. And what did they replace it with? Well, they use these things right here, which are filters, where we're able, like I'm in my Drive right now because this is our little navigation bar up here, and it shows that we're just inside Drive. And so we're allowed to change the way Drive looks just by using these modifiers right here. And that's how come all things Google can get a little bit confusing, because you do have so many choices. But let's talk about that first. How do we have this organized? You see that each one of these looks like a folder, and sure enough, they are a folder. This one down here has a little person in it, and that means it's shared. This one over here, Canvas, also is shared. These ones here with the little arced arrow is indicating to us that that's actually a shortcut to get to somewhere. So this isn't actually the folder, it's a shortcut to get to that folder. And so we're going to show you how to do all of those things. But here's all of my folders. They all have custom names on them. They have different colors to them and all that. And then here's my files down here. And I have mine organized right now and here it is, grid layout. So 2 months ago, this icon here did not exist. And so there was something else that was here, and it was kind of hard to understand what it was. You had to click on it a few times to remember what it was. But if we look now, we can see that we're in my drive because there's this gray blue, kind of oblong shape around it. And over here, we see a check mark and also the gray blue. And if we hover over it, it says grid layout. Okay, well, that's what it is, a grid. It shows us thumbnails, so we can kind of see. Just without having to read this appear, without having to look and see that this is a Google slide, I can see these horses, and I will remember that in one of our Google slide trainings, we created this using these horses as an icon. And over here, when we did a Google Form in a Google Forms class, we were doing a solar system thing or something. And so I could see these little tiles, these little thumbnails, and that's because we have it in grid layout. And because all of us learn differently, we all understand things in different ways. Google knows that some of us like to see things in a visual sense, and so they offered grid layout. But they've also offered something called list layout, and we'll see that in just a couple of minutes. But what I really like, a couple of months ago when this showed up right here, now we can see that we're in grid layout because we see the gray blue, and we also see the check mark. It makes it so much easier to go back and forth. So there's an example of something that's changed just recently. And we're going to talk about all of those changes. But first, what I want you to know is you have a number of different ways to display not only your folders, but also your files. And I have mine organized in the way that I believe yours comes with when you open up your drive for the first time. Your files and folders should be organized in alphanumeric ordering by name in ascending order. What does that mean? That means the A's and B's and C's come before the Y's and the W's and the Z's or whatever. And but because it's alphanumeric, that means that numbers come before the alphabet. And because it's alphanumeric, that also means that punctuation marks come before that. So let's take a look at our first folder here. This is winter, spring. This happens to be email addresses for people that attend the class. And so you'll see there's 3 dots in the middle, or in the front, I should say. And this one has 2 dots and then a single dot. Remember, alphanumeric ordering, punctuation comes first, and we're going to use that later to organize our folders in a different way. And then we see a number here, and it's ascending. Remember, it's going up. So 2017 comes before 2018, and 2019, 2020, and so on. And then we have the ABCs. And as you can see, I'm going from left to right and down the page, and we go across the ABCs, and eventually we get down here to the Z's at the end. And so if we look down here at our files, they're also the same way. We see punctuation marks. And in case you're wondering why I have these strange titles or names of files, it's because I'm always practicing with things, trying to learn better how things work so I can teach the class better. And so I leave these here just as an illustration that, yeah, punctuation comes first. There's 2 dots, 2 here. There's 1 dot right there, hard to see. And then we get to the numbers. There's a 2, and that one starts with a 3, and then eventually 10s and 11s. And we get all the way down here to 2021, and eventually we get to the A's, and then the B's, and then the C's, and so on and so forth. So I have mine set up by grid layout. And I strongly recommend that if you're visual at all, this is a good way to start. But more importantly, I have it organized by name in ascending order. Well, if you're new to this, you're probably going, okay, that's great. Well, what are the other options? There's lots. Look at this. I could have these folders organized by last modified or last modified by me. Why is there a difference? Remember, Canvas was shared, training practice was shared. What if it was modified by the person that shared that folder with me, or someone that I shared a folder with if they modify it? And what are we talking about here? Last opened by me. We're talking about the order of things here. Because mine's an alphanumeric order, if I create a new folder and it has a Z for the title at the beginning, guess what? It's going to end up down here at the bottom. I don't have to read through every one of these to find it. If I have a folder that I'm going to create in just a little bit for today's folder that we're going to be using for our class, and I want it to be in the prime position, well, all I got to do is have at least 4 dots, and it's going to end up right here. So what I'm saying is you can organize this in a way so it's easy to find things. If you happen to change this, just because you're maybe new and you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, look at that, and I'll try that. And then all of a sudden you come back and you're like, where's my Z folder down here? And all of a sudden the Z folder's over here, or maybe it's up there, or it's moving around. Yeah, if you choose those other options, every time you modify a folder or you open a folder, it jumps to the prime position. Can that be helpful? Well, you might be thinking, yeah, that'd be very helpful because I know something I was just working on, so it'll be right there. Well, isn't that what the recent folder is for? Yeah, that's so much easier to use that. I'm going to click on this Drive button here to get back to Drive. And so the idea that you change it over here to me is kind of silly, because having this change all the time generally means that you're going to have to like read through it to find your folder. So I'm strongly recommending you keep it by name in ascending order. That's A before Z, 1 before a zillion, and lots of dots before just a single dot. So that makes it a little bit easier. So again, here's 3 dots, 3 dots. Here's some question marks, so on. Let's switch it over to list layout and see what the difference is. All right. So we still see these are folders. Folders are always on top of files. And we see that the 3 dots comes before the 2 dots, comes before the 1 dot. Why? Because this is still by name in ascending order. Can we change stuff? Yeah, we can still go over there and change like last modified and all that. And so we had roughly about 20 folders. And so if I scroll down here, we'll see that the last folders, sure enough, start with a Z. And then the files, this is a Google Doc, this is a Google Sheet. These are shortcuts to get to Google Docs. We can see that the punctuation marks come first. So even though this is in list layout, and yeah, it's got some other information like, hey, you're the owner, Mr. J, so don't forget, oh yeah, and this one's 3 kilobytes and this one's 9.5 or whatever. That could be helpful, and maybe that's interesting to you. But again, depending on your preference, you can use either one, list or grid layout, but I strongly recommend that you keep it by name in ascending order. And what does it mean to reverse the sort order? It just means the Z's end up here and the dots end up down at the bottom, and the file's the same. So real quick, I'm going to go here to this yellow one. It's called Google Classes, and I'm going to double click on it. And before I do, I want you to remember that this is your navigation bar up here. This is the pathway to get into stuff. So again, I'm in my drive. It's my sandy.net drive. And I've got all these different folders over here, which we're going to explore. And here's kind of our regular folders that we've created that we can put things in and store things in. How many folders can you have in a folder? As many as you want. How many files in those folders? You can have folders inside of folders, inside of folders, inside of folders, and every one of those folders can have a number of different files, and it just goes on and on and on. But we're going to demonstrate that real quick. So here is Google Classes. I'm going to double click on it. Notice up here that now it says My Drive, Google Classes. What this is telling us is that all of these folders and any folders that are inside of them, including these files, are inside my drive, but specifically inside Google Classes. Okay, so I'm going to double click on this one here, 2019-2020 Google Classes. So now I'm inside my drive, specifically in Google Classes, and specifically inside the 2019-2020 Google Classes. And so now we even have even more. So let's double click on this one. Uh-oh, what happened? Well, remember we were just in this folder and we clicked on the February 13th one and it's opened up and there's still yet another folder inside. Well, where's the rest of our trail here? It doesn't quite fit, but we have this ellipsis. And so remember, we were in My Drive. We drilled down by double clicking on the Google Classes. Then we drilled down and double clicked on 2019, 2020, and then we did it again to February 13th. So not only is this a pathway, a navigation bar, but yeah, you just click on it and we can navigate back. There's the February 13th one I was just in. And remember, we're now in the 2019 because it's all the way over here at the right. These are the 3 folders that are in this one. So now I can navigate back to this one. And there's the 2019, 2020 that we went into. So keep that in mind. And this is going to be really important later because when we create something new, whether it's a document, a spreadsheet, or even just a folder, wherever you are is where it's going to be created. So knowing that will keep you from losing things pretty quickly. All right, so let's go back to my drive. And I want a folder up here, and it's going to be called the Today's folder. And if I just call it the Today's folder, it's going to end up down here in the T's, unless I use my alphanumeric ordering system and put like 4 dots in front of it, then it will do it. So let's talk about how you can make folders. And by the way, you've been using probably a filing cabinet at home for a long time before you probably even use computer stuff. And it's kind of the same idea. If you have a phone bill associated with, your utilities, you might have a utilities folder. And inside that might be the gas bill, the electric bill, the phone bill, stuff like that for your home, for example. And so always we need to be thinking about what makes sense to us. The way that I keep my folders as far as the titles of them and what's inside makes sense to me, and Google allows you great leeway to do whatever it is you want. So if I want to create a new folder here, there's a couple of ways to do it. We see this new button up here, so let's just click on it real quick. Aha, new folder, there it is right at the top. File upload, folder upload. Well, that's pretty cool. I can actually go grab a folder or a file off my desktop or somewhere on my computer, and I can upload it into my drive. Remember, the drive's in the cloud, so that's why it's saying upload. Oh, but look, I can also do a Google Doc, a sheet, a slide, a form, and a whole bunch of other things. And how did I get there? I just simply clicked on the new button. Well, you'll always learn in my classes that there's not only a left click, but a right click, a double click, a triple click, and there's even a mouse click as well as a roller. And depending on where you are, different things happen. So if I go up here and I right click, nothing happens. But if I come down here near the folders, not on top of one, that's different, and I right click, oh, look, I get the exact same thing as hitting this new button. So save you a millisecond or so. And we just want a new folder. So let's go ahead and click on it. And by the way, because I'm making a new folder, where is it going to show up? In my drive, because I'm not drilled down on something. That's very important. So new folder. What are we going to call it? Well, we said we're going to call it Today's folder. And the reason I call it, the reason I call it the Today's folder is because if I see it later on, since I teach classes all week long, week after week, if I see a Today's folder, I know it's just a temporary folder for our class, and that if I need to, I can toss it out. So I've typed it in there, and if I click create, we know where it's going to end up. It's going to end up down there in the T's, but I actually want it to be in the prime position. So utilizing our alphanumeric ordering, I want to put the cursor right there in the front, and I'm just going to put a few dots in there. All right. There we go. So now I have 4 dots, and I'm going to say create. And we know because they're ordering, it's going to end up right up here in the front. And the first thing we'll say is, okay, well, great. So now we know how to order it, but how do I make it look like all of these others? Well, there's a couple of different ways to do that. There's an ellipsis button right here. Let's click on it and see what happens. Okay, so I can open this in some way. I can download it, put it on my computer. I can rename it. There it is. I can share it with all of you, or just get a link and send it in an email for people. Oh, look, I can organize it. I can even change the color. We're going to make it, oh, I don't know. How about we make it this lovely purple color for today? But before I do that, you'll notice that I can also add it to starred, and I can add a shortcut to somewhere if I want, or I can move it somewhere else. All of those things I could do just by hitting this ellipsis here and then going down to organize. But for right now, let's make it purple. And just for fun, when I hit this again, I've got a couple of other things that I can do here, and we'll take a look at some of those. But instead of just having to hit that, anywhere over here, you just right click and you get the exact same menu. So I'm going to go back to organize, and I'm going to say add to starred. So what is starred? Well, since Microsoft apparently owns the copyright for favorites, Google had to come up with a new one. So they decided with starred. So just know that over here, these are your favorites called starred. And if I click on it, you'll see that all this changed here because look, oh, there's my today's folder. Why is it in front of this one? Well, there's only one dot there. There's 4 here, so it's going to be in the prime position. And remember that no matter how deep you go into all the different folders, because we're organized by name, alphanumeric ordering, ascending, all of the punctuations going to be on the left and all the Z's are going to be on the right, and then everything in the middle, such as that. So something important. All right. So there's starred. Why would we need a starred? Well, maybe, let's go back to Drive. Maybe something you're trying to get to all the time is inside this Google Classes folder, but it's inside that folder, inside another folder, inside of another folder. And rather than clicking 17 times to get where you're going, well, you could just, if you're always going to that folder, then hey, just put it in your favorites. And then when you click on favorites, it's just right there and you can get to it. So that's pretty helpful. So let's just go back to here, and there's our today's folder. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on it to open it up. Okay, so we got this little message here, drop files here or use the new button. So what it's saying is I can just drag stuff off of my desktop and I can put it in there. So let's see what we have here. All right, here's a practice demo one. I'm going to grab this and drag it over. And you'll see that this is a Microsoft Excel file. And I'm kind of going around in circles here so you can see where I am. And it says plus copy. What does that mean? That means that if I drag this in off of my desktop, my computer, and I drop it here, it's not going to erase what's on my computer or my desktop. That's important. It's just going to make a copy of it and then upload it to the today's folder in my drive. And then I still haven't let go of it yet because I just dragged it in here and I still have my left finger pressed down on the left button of the mouse. And down at the bottom is a little banner that's kind of helping us out. Drop files to upload them to where? ... Today's folder. And look up there. We're in the today's folder. And that's exactly where it would go. That's just a file. So let's see here. How about, got all kinds of stuff here. Here's a Canvas folder that I have. Now this folder has folders inside and other files and other things. And again, I can bring that in and drop it in the today's folder, and it's not going to erase what's on my computer. It's just going to make a copy of it. And that's pretty cool. But I don't actually want those. So what's another way that I could do this? So if we go back to the new button, and remember, always look to where we are because that's where everything's going to open up. So here's the new button. Oh yeah, I can upload a file this way or a folder or start any of these other things. And where will they be stored? Right here in the today's folder. Well, remember I said you could right click on things, get the exact same menu, so it's a little bit faster. So let's upload some files, and I want to show you just how quickly this happens. Okay, so now I'm all the way, I'm looking through my file browser for my computer, and I'm going into my training database for Drive, and I want this one here, and I want that one there, and then I want this one down here. Oh, wait, we've got a problem. Every time I select something, just by clicking on it, it only allows me to do one at a time. Well, the easy answer to that is using the keyboard shortcut. You hold down the Control key, and then it allows you to do more than one. And you can do it just like that. And these are the 3 that I want. And if you accidentally do some extra ones, not a big deal. Just keep holding down the Control key, go back and click them again, and you can deselect them. All right, so these are the 3 that I want. And so I want to upload them. And again, all I did was right click and say upload files in this case. So I'm going to say okay. And this happens quick, so watch it. Uploading 3 items. Boom, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. All right. So this one is an Excel file. This one's a Microsoft Word file. And this one's a PDF, which happens to be an Adobe product. None of these are Google products, but Google allows us to bring those in. Thank you for the update. I'm going to go ahead and hit the X right there, get rid of that. So there they are. Well, what do these look like? We don't see our previews yet. Remember that happened pretty quick, but the preview part, the data package that has the preview in it hasn't shown up yet. Maybe it's slowed down through the firewall. We'll have to wait a few seconds. So what do these look like? Well, let's open up the Excel file. I've got it right here. All right, I have just opened up the Microsoft Excel file that I wanted to show you. And I've got a number of different sheets in here. This is one that I use for my introduction to Microsoft Excel. And we have just brought this Excel file, and yes, it's still an Excel file, into our Google Drive. And we're going to be opening it up in Google Drive, in fact, in Google Sheets to take a look at it. But I wanted you to see what it looks like. And so you can see I've got some different food items here. I've got some numbers in a couple different places, some colors, some fun things to eat with lots of sugar in it. And then we have right here some mystery something here, some hashtag marks. And we'll have to take a look at that and see what that is. But we're going to be doing that in Google. But that's what that one looks like. Let's take a look real quick at what our Microsoft Word document looks like. It's the famous author Word document. So here's what that one looks like. It's just got 4 different authors with biographical information and then quotes from books. This happens to be William Faulkner, one of my favorite authors. Here's quotes from The Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying, Absalom, Absalom. And then here's Ernest Miller Hemingway, a more well-known author. And here's some biographical information and some quotes from some of my favorite books. And then The Count of Monte Cristo from Alexander Dumas, and then Les Mis down here at the bottom from Victor Marie Hugo. That's what that is. There's some general formatting on this or whatever, and we are in Microsoft Word. Remember that. When we open this up in Google Docs, you're going to see that it looks identical because Google is really good at using its optical character recognition software and basically taking the Microsoft stuff and turning it into a Google document. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit. All right, and then last but not least, I have an example of an Adobe product, and it happens to be a waiver form from somewhere on our staff portal. And let me pull this over here, stretch it out a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. You can see that it's just about a half page long right there, up from the top down to the bottom. And so just a couple of things to point out. We've got a few checkboxes here. There's 2 more up here, certificated, classified. Down here, here's another one. We can clearly see where it says employees are urged to, blah, blah, blah. This is all bold. We can see an employee signature with a line and then a date and a line. And I'm pointing this out for a reason because this is not a Word document. It's not a Google Docs document. It's just a PDF. And if you've ever tried to take a PDF and modify it or edit it in some way, you really can't unless you're paying Adobe money. Last time I paid for that, it was about $150 a year to be able to have access to that. But Google, through its optical character recognition software, allows you to be able to modify PDFs to some degree when you turn them into a Google Doc. But what doesn't work very well are the checkboxes, the lines, and the tables. So in this table, we can see name, we have last, first, middle, home address, city, state, zip. We're going to see how all of those words are going to come through. And it's getting better and better as the years go by. When I first did this back in, I think 2017 was the first time I taught how to do this in Google Docs. We couldn't even get a table to come through when we transferred it into a Google Doc. Whereas now the table comes in, but then the formatting's different. And then we still can't get checkboxes, and then these lines just sort of disappear. So we're going to see all of that, but I wanted you to see what it looked like first. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. So let's switch back to where we were. So now we're back in our Today's folder, and I still don't have a preview of what these things look like. Let's see if we can't reload the page or refresh the page and see if it will show us. Oh, there we go. So refresh is typically like every 30 seconds. So the fact that it didn't refresh on its own is kind of interesting, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. This is hard to see because it's small, but trust me, the checkboxes are there, the table's there for our waiver form, and you can sign down at the bottom. Here's our Microsoft Word document, and yes, it's a Word document because there's the W, all right? And we can see that it's kind of indented the same way that we saw before, and then the Excel training workbook. We saw some numbers like onions and peanut butter and different things that are on there. So yeah, we got a little bit of a sample there. And again, they're in alphanumeric ordering by name. So E comes before F, which comes before W. So that's why they're in that order. If I wanted to rename these, I could and put some dots in front, and then we could change the positions. So something to think about. All right, well, let's talk about this Today's folder and these things that I've brought in there. Something that we need to understand about Google Drive is that we can store not only all of the Google docs and sheets and forms and all that, but as you can see, we can put in Microsoft as well as Adobe things in there. But let's talk about how that works. So here in my browser, here's all the tabs that I have open. Here in my browser is where we're in my drive. All right. And when I double click on this Excel training workbook, watch what happens up here at the top. It opens up a new tab. And this happens very quickly, but it's saying, hey, we're going to open up this Excel spreadsheet, but we're going to open it up in Google Sheets. In fact, if I see this icon here, it's definitely Google Sheets. I hover over it, it says Sheets Home. And sure enough, here's our Google Sheets user interface. Oh, and look, there's our onions and our numbers and our colors. And there's peanut butter all the way down to cheesecake. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, look, here's all the drop-down menus for all of the different parts of Google Sheets. That's great. But guess what? We are looking at a Microsoft Excel file in Google Sheets. That's a little bit confusing, but basically Google allows you to be able to not only bring in Excel worksheets in this case, and then a little bit later we'll see the Microsoft Word documents and all that, but it also allows you to be able to change stuff. So if I go down here and I can do some formatting, I just clicked on H2, that's where peanut butter is. And yeah, I can make that bold. I can make it bigger. I can change the color to red if I want. Boom, there it is. I click somewhere else and now it's set. And look at that, save to drive. But make no mistake, this is 100% an Excel spreadsheet. And so something to keep in mind, Google does not recommend that you bring in a Microsoft Excel file, which is what this is, and then modify it in Google Sheets. Will it work? For the most part, yes. Do weird things happen? Yes, they do. And so when weird things happen in Google, a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's the little data packets going back and forth at near the speed of light and changes getting made, and then something gets messed up. And so then Google will revert back to something else. What am I talking about? If I spent 3 hours in this Microsoft Excel workbook, adding formulas and changing this and changing the format to that, in a couple of days, it could still be there, but a few days after that, those changes might disappear or stop working altogether. What does Google recommend? Google recommends that what you do is, yes, you can bring in and look at a Microsoft Excel file in Google Sheets, but turn it into a 100% Google Sheet. So let's go back real quick to our today's folder, because that's where we are. We have just this Excel training workbook, and it's opened up in this tab right here. So Google says, please save yourself a lot of grief. Go to the File menu, drop-down menu, and right down here it says Save as a Google Sheet. And when I click on this, look up there at the tabs at the top, and what happens? Another one's opening up. And it happens, wow, it happened so fast, it didn't even tell us it was going to open it in, it already says Save to Drive. Boy, that happened very quickly. Yay. So again, speeds will go slow or they go fast depending on traffic. So this looks exactly the same, and even peanut butter's already changed. Let's take a look over here. Yep, this is the Excel one. There's the extension, looks identical. When I click on this one, there's no extension. All right, so these two are now completely separate files. Any changes I make to this Excel spreadsheet will not affect this other spreadsheet, which is a whole new one, happens to be 100% Google Sheet. They're totally different. And any changes now that I make to the 100% Google Sheet version, it will not transfer over to the original one, which is 100% Excel. Let's go back to the today's folder. Remember we started off with just the 3? This one was Excel. Now we have 2. So again, any changes I make in this one will not affect the other one, and vice versa, because they're 2 separate and distinct. We did that the moment that in the Excel version, we went to File and said Save as a Google Sheet. All right, so just to prove that point, I'm going to click right here. I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to go down to Image, and then I'm going to say Image over Cells, and then I'm going to get this Google search thing, and I can get all kinds of different photos from different places. I'm just going to go on the internet, and since my wife and I love horses, I'm going to type in horses, and we get all these beautiful pictures. And by the way, you can click on this one. We see the blue line around it, and then we see the insert down there. But remember, I said you could double click on things, and sometimes things happen a little bit faster. Okay, saving, save to drive. All right, so now that picture is on the Excel version. Let's click on the other one. There's no horse there, and there won't be until I add a horse in the same way by going to insert and doing the same thing I just did on this one. Now let's go back to our today's folder. Okay, we see the preview, but there's no horse there. Let's see if we can force it. All right. It might happen in 3 seconds from now. It might happen in 3 minutes. It might happen in 25 minutes. Again, because we are interacting with the Google server farms at near the speed of light with every click of the mouse, with every stroke of the keyboard, it's not happening on our computer, even though we see it on our monitor. So sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's shorter. Keep that in mind. If you understand that, you're going to be way ahead of the curve because it's so easy to get frustrated in all things Google when suddenly you're like, wait a minute, didn't I add a horse to that? How come there's no horse there? And we're waiting, still no horse, but it will show up there in a little bit. No problem. All right, so here's our Microsoft Word document, the famous author one that we saw. Let's try this one. Watch what happens up here when I do it. Double click. All right, it's saying it's going to open up the Microsoft document in Google Docs. But look at this. There's the extension, Microsoft Word format. So there it is again. There's William Faulkner with the quotes. And we go down here, and here's Hemingway with the quotes. And then Alexander Dumas, and then down here, Victor Marie Hugo. It looks exactly the same. It's indented the same. It's got the same bold and italicized and all that. But the same thing can happen. I can spend all day changing the color of the fonts, changing the fonts, moving things around, make it look just wonderful. Google says don't do that because you might come back in 3 days and it still looks fine, even though you did it in the Microsoft format from your Docs user interface. But then a day after that, it might change back or something else might happen. Because again, Microsoft and Google are competitors. All right, keep that in mind. So what is it they suggest we do? That we simply go to File and go down here and say Save as a Google Doc, just like we did to the Excel worksheet. We turned it into a Google Sheet. So we're going to turn this Microsoft Word document into a Google Doc. And when I click on it, watch what happens to the tabs above. Now it's opening up another one. Let's see how long it takes. Save to drive. That was almost instantaneous. That was pretty quick, like a second or two. And look, it looks identical. It's the same font, same spacing, same everything. That's fantastic. But make no mistake, this one, Microsoft Word file, and the 100% Google Doc are totally different than one another. So I'm just, for fun, going to put my cursor there. I'm going to go up to Insert, and I'm going to go down here to Images, and we're going to go search the web. And since we don't seem to get in trouble with finding beautiful horse pictures, I'm going to type in horse. Actually, let's type in horses so I can kind of get the same one. All right, let's try the same one. Double click. And so it's going to show up right there. Again, save to drive. This is the one that's a Microsoft Word, whereas this one is 100% a Google Doc. And remember, any changes we make to this one will not show up on the original, and any changes we make to the original will not show up on the 100% Google Doc. Let's go back to Drive. Uh-oh, where's our other one? Oh, look, now the horse showed up for our Excel one, but we don't even see the Google Doc one here, do we? It's taking a little bit of time. I could wait 5 or 10 minutes. Let's see if we can force it. Ah, that did it. Oh, look, and it already brought in the horse picture. So again, we started off with the Microsoft Word document, and then we simply went up to File and then said Save as a Google Doc, and we got the other one that was 100% Google Doc. All right. And any changes we make to the Google Doc now will not affect the Microsoft Word one and vice versa. And the same with these other ones because they're separate files. So keep that in mind. And so let's talk about this for a moment. What do we do now with the Microsoft files? We have an Excel and a Microsoft Word. So now this is where we start thinking about how we organize our folders. So we're in our Today's folder, and maybe I want a new folder in here that I can put Microsoft stuff in. I could go up here to New and say New Folder. Oh yeah, but I can just right-click over here and say New Folder. And what are we going to call it? Well, how about we just call it Microsoft? So you might be wondering to yourself, well, why would I want to keep a Microsoft document if I'm going to be using that Microsoft document only in Google Docs or Google Sheets? Well, there's some good reasons for that. But first, let's just go over here, right-click, Now we're going to go down to organize, and Microsoft's typically blue color, so now it's blue. All right, so we're going to take the Word document, we're going to just drag it right in there. So you can start to see, here's our Excel one, drag it and drop it in there. And so now we don't have to look at the Microsoft versions of it. We still just have three. The two we're going to work with, this one we haven't dealt with yet. And where do we put it? We put them in the Microsoft folder. Well, why did we do that? Why is that important? Well, what happens if maybe on my computer, my real computer, not my Google Drive, my computer's hard drive fails, and now I've lost my Microsoft files? Is there some way I could come into today's folder inside my Microsoft folder and then download these and put them on my computer? Absolutely. Right click, download, and I can put it on my computer. Right click, download, and put it on my computer. It will be an Excel file, and this will be a Microsoft Word file. Pretty cool. All right. So again, let's go back. Here we are in my drive, and I use alphanumeric ordering so that I could put the today's folder in the front. I double click on that. And now I'm in there and I've got these three files, but I also have two more. They're hidden inside Microsoft. And I'm going to double click on this. And look, so I'm in my drive, in the today's folder, in the Microsoft folder, and there's two files there. Well, right now, this isn't, hard to find the Word document or the Excel document. But what if I had 25 Word documents and 25 or so Excel? Then I would need to organize more to make it easier. So then I might just do this. New folder. And I'm going to call this one, let's see, I'm going to call this the Word. Why not? All right, so just type in Word and I say enter. All right, so there it is. Word's typically blue, so let's just go down to organize real quick. And you start to get the idea of how quickly you could start to do this. We need one more, we need an Excel one. So I'm going to go over here and say new folder, and we're going to type this in Excel. And before I hit enter, I want you to consider for a moment, does E come before W? It does. And since we're in alphanumeric order ascending, then we know that Word's going to move over to the right and Excel is going to jump to the left. Create. Bam! Sure enough, it did. So understanding just a few of the features of the many options that you have and sticking to it is going to save you a lot of grief. And also knowing how to organize folders and folders inside folders, and in this case, folders inside other folders, it's going to save you a lot of grief when you can find things more easily. Can we search for stuff? Sure, we'll get to that later. But Excel is usually green, right click, organize, green, bam. So then we just simply left click on this Excel one, drop it in there, and we take this Word one and we drop it in the Word. Oops, I dropped it in Excel. Uh-oh. Sure enough, I double click on the Word folder and there's nothing in there. But if I go back and go into the Excel one, then it's actually inside the Excel. That's a mistake. So how do I get this out of here? There's a couple ways to do it, but let's right click and see if we can figure it out. Organize, move. Okay. So we have that Word one inside the Excel folder. Where do we want to put it? Oh, look, it's kind of giving us a suggestion here. There's the Word one we just did. So I can simply go over here and say move. And off it goes. It's no longer in there. Sure enough, I go back to here, double click on the Word folder, and there it is. So Google gives you all the tools that you need to be able to do all of these things. Let's go back to the today's folder. All right. So before I open up this PDF, which works a little bit different than these other ones, we're going to see that in just a second. I want to go back to my drive to talk about something. So let's think about where you work at your department or at your school site, your colleagues, the people that you work with, and maybe you have a folder where you are all sharing stuff back and forth, but you want to keep it all in one place, so you want to share it. How do you do that? Let's pretend we're going to share the today's folder, and I've got a couple of other trainers I could share this with. So I could just right click on this, and I could go down here to share and then say share. I could also get a link for it right there. But look at this. If I click on any one of these one time, if I double click, it drills down and you'll see the navigation bar open up and we actually go in there. But with just a single click, it gives us these other options here. I'm going to click away, click down here, gives us some more options. I'm going to click right here in the today's folder. Oh, look, there's another way to share. Oh, look, there's another way to share right down here. Right click. Okay, same idea. So there's a bunch of different ways to share. So it's going to open up the share dialog box, and that's great. And I want to type in the email addresses of a few people here. And so I'm going to hit, I hit T too many times. So I've got some pretend trainers here. Unfortunately, Sir Paul McCartney of the Fab Four disappeared because someone in the district found it and said, oh, he doesn't really exist in our district, so he got rid of him. But I still got the fabulous 3 left. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on Trainer T1 John Lennon, my pretend trainer. And let's look at what I can do. I can make him a viewer, commenter, an editor, whatever. I can do all of those things. That's great. If I want to type him a message, I can. And then I can send that to him. And depending on how his notifications are set up, he'll get a notification. But I'm going to click right here. I'm going to hit T again. And let's go ahead and add George Harrison. Hit T again. And let's add Ringo Starr. That sounds good. And we're going to make them all editors. And what is it we're sharing? We're sharing the Today's folder. I could write a message, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say send and watch what happens on our screen. Access updated. It's down here. Don't know why. Sometimes that banner shows up top. Seems like it keeps moving to different places. Not sure why. All right. So there's the Today's folder. Now we see that there's a share icon in there, a little half person. Okay, that's pretty cool. But what does that mean? Let's double click in here. Oh, look, Microsoft has a share icon on it. Let's double click again. Boy, that made me a little nervous, but that's a great lesson right there. You notice how it took a few seconds for that to show up? The point I was trying to make is, if you share a folder, whether it has folders inside of it, with folders inside of that, inside folders inside of that, or not, anything inside whatever you share is going to be shared in the exact same way. What am I talking about? So if I go into the Microsoft one and I right click and I go on share, do you remember the 3 that we just shared it with? And what were they? They were editors. They're all still editors. I can then go in and change it and say, oh, John Lennon needs to be just a viewer, or make John Lennon the owner, or vice versa. There's a couple different options that I have, and I strongly suggest you look at our how to create and share folders and files in Google Drive. We've got about a 20-minute video on how to do that, where we go through all of this. But in short, if I share the Today's folder, everything inside of it, whether it's a folder or files, these are all shared now with the same 3 individuals. And then if I double click on Microsoft, Excel is the same way, so is Word. And watch this. I'm going to go into Word and I'm going to go to share. Let's try that again. And remember, it's those 3 all editors. Well, look what I can do. I can actually remove access to any one of them. Okay. And when I do this, this is something new that popped up about a month ago. Remember, I'm in the Microsoft Word folder, inside the Microsoft folder, inside the Today's folder, which is inside Drive. And so it's going all the way back to the parent folder. It's saying, hey, do you want to remove John Lennon as an editor from everything all the way back to the Today's folder, or just from the Microsoft Word folder? It's giving us a choice. In fact, it's trying to suggest that we go all the way back. That's kind of cool. It saves us a little bit of a step. But again, about a month and a half ago, they started using this feature. And so you have to stop and read it. That's the nature of Google. Trust me, if you spend all day today and you memorize every single thing on this user interface, you might come back tomorrow and there might be 20% difference or 30% difference, or maybe it's a week or 2 from now. But it changes all the time. And so if you see something new, stop and read it. Basically, I just want to take away John Lennon's editor rights permissions just to the Word document. So I'm going to say remove from item only. All right. And you'll notice we're in the Word folder. That's where we did this share. And now he's not there. But the changes are pending until I hit save. So now anywhere else I go in the Today's folder, and we'll just go here real quick, share, you'll see that John Lennon is still available as an editor. I'm going to click away from that. I'm going to go to the Word one. It's still shared, but not with John. You're going to see it's just George Harrison and Ringo Starr. And again, if I want, I can make one of them a viewer, or I can make one of them an owner. I have some other options, and there's still more options up here in settings. And again, I recommend you spend some time watching those videos if you want to learn more about that. But the bottom line is, Typically, the way that it works is if you share something, everything inside of it has the same permissions, unless you go into it all the way and then right click on it and then change the share like we just did to John Lennon. All right, so that's how the share button works. That's pretty cool. Let's go back to the Today's folder. We haven't done this one yet. It works a little bit different than Docs and Sheets, but it also ends up in Google Docs. But remember, it's an Adobe product. It's a PDF. So I'm going to double click on it and watch what happens up here. It's going to be a little bit different. There's not a new one that's going to open up just yet. It's going to stay in our Google Drive. Double click. See how it's the same? In fact, we can still see Drive kind of grayed out behind there, kind of like a smoke screen. And there it is. We saw this before, something I just got off the internet from the, what is it, the benefits department or something from our school district. And yes, we can see that there's a table, there's some check boxes, there's a couple lines for signature and so on and so forth. We can see that these paragraphs are centered in the middle of the page. We can see that city, state, and zip is spread out, so there's room to write it down, just like last, first, and middle. Signature, date, all that, couple boxes and all that. So we are just inside of our drive, and double clicking on it, it allows us a preview. Can't do anything with it yet, but we can open it with the Google Doc. And when we do that, now we're going to open up a new Google Doc. Let's go ahead and give it a try. But you're going to see the limitations of using an Adobe PDF. Well, hey, that's pretty good. At least we got the table there. But you'll notice last, first, middle squished together. So it's home address, city, state, zips way over here. Remember, there was a checkbox for certificated classified. In fact, if we go back to here, we can see it. That was our preview. And when we clicked on open with Google Docs, now we see the new thing. And what's more, oh, look, we got rid of the lines and it kicked it all down to a second half page. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about optical character recognition. A character is a space, a number, a letter, a punctuation mark, something like that. It's 100% perfect with all of those. Where optical character recognition lacks, but it's getting better. Again, back in 2017, the table wouldn't even show up. Where it lacks is with tables, checkboxes, and other things. So why would we even use this? If I was trying to fill this out to change my vision, dental, or medical benefits with the district, and then turn into one of these, and then say, oh dear, well let's see, oh that's out of the way. I got to push that back a little. Oh, went over there. Now I got to push it over here, and then put a check. That's a waste of time. So why would we even do this? Well, we wouldn't for that point. We would just print that out, fill it out, scan it on our work copier, and send it off to the benefits department, and we're good to go. But what if you're working in a department or at a school site and you find a PDF from another school site or maybe from another department and you want to use some of the stuff that they have there? Now, I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me on this, but my understanding is if you change any digital medium or media by at least 10%, you've created something new. But remember what you're using it for. If it's just another school in a school district and you just want to like kind of get some of the ideas from what they have and then apply it to your school, chances are you're going to change it 30, 40, 50%. So you're just simply just trying to get, the formatting in there so that you can use it as kind of a head start, a template, if you will. And so I wouldn't imagine there'd be any copyright concerns about that. But if you wanted to do that, yeah, all of the words would be there, all of the letters and numbers. Look, these are both centered in the middle. This is still bold, but the other formatting things are wrong. And so at least you have a head start. You don't have to type all this stuff out. At least you have it. That's pretty cool. So keep that in mind. With the PDF, you do have some options to be able to modify PDFs to some degree. But if they have anything other than letters, numbers, spaces, other characters like that, then it's limited, so it doesn't work that well. So let's go back to our drive. So there we are in preview mode. Boom, we go back here. So now we have the original PDF, and then we have the new one that's a Google Doc. Oh, they both called the same thing. And if there's the preview is working right now, but my computer's slow, or stated differently, my computer's pretty quick. It's the internet connection. It's a little bit slow right now. Or maybe the Google server farms are a little slow. Or maybe it's the San Diego Unified Google domain firewalls that we go through is a little bit slow right now, but it doesn't matter. I want to put this original in a folder for later in case I ever need it. And what would we call that folder? Adobe. Right click, new folder. Let's just type in Adobe. And I want you to consider for a moment how Adobe is spelled. It starts with the letter A, which is before Microsoft. So when I create it, we already know where it's going to end up, right there. And Adobe's usually red. And so I'm going to go down here to organize. And we're going to make it red. Boom, there it is. Now I have it. And oh, look at this. Wait a minute. We just made the Adobe folder. Why is it already shared? It's most definitely shared. And guess what? It's shared with all three of the Fab 3. Sorry, Sir Paul, you're not there. And I can grab this form here now and I can stick it inside there. That's great. Everyone, okay, time to read. Change who has access. This item will be visible to everyone who can see Adobe. That's the folder. Everyone who can see today's folder will lose access to this item unless this item is shared directly with them. Okay. So again, they are changing the nuance of how things are being shared inside of Google Drive. But just remember, typically, whatever you share, in this case, the today's folder, everything inside of it, unless you change it later, is going to be shared the same way. And so that's what's going on with the Adobe one there. And I just put in the Adobe PDF file into it. All right, if I wanted to change it somehow, I could right click on it, go to share, and start making modifications or changes. All right, so there's our drive, at least the part of a today's folder. That's some of the organizing skills that we have, and we can move things around. If we accidentally put something in the wrong folder, we just go to it, right click on it, go down to organize, say move, and then go find that folder, and then move it to another folder or another region. So let's go back to my drive real quick. All right, so be thinking about the way that you're going to organize things. So just because I have these folders organized this way doesn't mean that's going to work for you, but that's okay. You're not going to be navigating my drive. I will be. So Google gives us complete leeway on how we're going to organize our drive. We don't get to organize this over here. Those decisions are made by the Google men and women engineers. But also, this is something important I just want to point out. We have at the school district a Sandy.net Google domain administrator. What does that mean? Not only can the Google people add things and take things away, so can the administrator for the Sandy.net Google domain. Well, is there an example of that? Sure, we already talked about it. Storage, unlimited storage for San Diego Unified. Thank you very much. If I again go back to my Yahoo personal Google Drive, they want to sell me storage all day long. I don't have to worry about that. Having said that, I'm going to go back here real quick. And you see this little, it's called the Google Apps waffle. Sometimes people just call it the Apps waffle. Kind of looks like a waffle. All right. We're going to see that. But before we do, I'm going to show you what it looks like in my Yahoo personal version. Click on it. Notice how everything kind of looks the same, just different names of stuff. So I'm going to click on it. And here's all these different icons here. And Google's just put a bunch of different ones up here, and they think that are important, like Drive and Gmail, Maps, all that kind of stuff. If there's something you use all the time and it's important, you can always left click and drag it and put it up at the top. Oh, that's kind of cool. All right, so we'll put that back down there. But look at Gmail. Gmail, of course, is Google's version of internet mail or mail through your browser mail. So is Outlook with Microsoft. And again, this is the personal one associated with my Yahoo account. Now we're going to go back to the Sandy.net Google domain associated with all of our Sandy.net email addresses. And if I click on it now, where's Gmail? Oh, well, maybe it's down here. Maybe it got moved. See if I can move that. There we go. Gmail, where are you? It's not there. Why is that? Very simply, our school district is heavily invested in all things Microsoft, and they want us to use Microsoft Outlook. That's just the way they want us to do it. And because they didn't want us to use Gmail, you can see that they've removed it. It's not there anywhere. Gmail's gone. And that's unfortunate in some ways, but it's what the district has decided. So keep that in mind. We can have changes made by our Google administrator for the district, as well as changes. Things can happen like this home button showing up just about a month and a half ago, which we'll share in just a few minutes. So remember that Google Drive can be updated and changed, the user interface, at any time. These buttons here showed up about 2 months ago. this drive was repaired and made so much better about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now. The suggested section up here with the tiles on it disappeared about 2 months ago. Before there was home, it was called priority. Before that, there was nothing there. And yeah, they're going to be changing stuff all the time, and just be aware of it. So we're going to jump around here just a little bit. We're going to see a few different things, but I just want to show you something real quick. I opened up my Sandy.net Google Drive a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago now. And instead of seeing like a today's folder with the dots in front of it and the Z at the end, alphanumeric order ascending, and then my files down here in alphanumeric order, I want to show you what I saw the very first time I opened up after this feature was brand new, because Google switched this to default and said, oh, hey, check out the new way we're organizing your drive. And I want to show you what it looked like. Okay, still a search bar up there. That's cool. Okay, we still have grid layout and we have list layout. And now we've got suggested files, folders. Wait a minute. So here's my files. They're now on top. Let's scroll down a little bit. Where's my folders? Wait a minute. Look at this, the elevator car. Where's the rest of my files? I will tell you that all of these files exist somewhere in a folder, and I have them organized to find them. All right. And so then it's given us these search modifiers right here. You know, what is it? Is it a spreadsheet? You know, whatever. It's almost like you have to search for stuff every time. Wait a minute, I just want to get to my today's folder. It's always right there in the front. What the heck am I looking at? After just a few seconds, I went, oh, it's this new thing called home. And oh, it's on files. Oh, okay, well, look, there's folders. So certainly when I click on folders, then my today's folder with the dots in front, and then my other folders with the Z's in front are going to end up at the end. I know exactly what's going to happen when I click on folders. Oh, there is the today's folder. Well, there's a Z one over there, but then here's one with a dot in front of it. Wait a minute. Some of these folders are inside of other folders, and where are they? Okay, can I go over here and say, where's the rest of my folders? I had about 20 of them. I only see a few of them. Oh, okay, there's folders. Okay, I got to do that. Now, look at all my folders. Remember we made a Microsoft folder? We made a Word folder today. We made an Excel folder today, and an Adobe one, a today's folder. Yeah, they're all right there, most relevant. Okay, what are the other options? Last modified. We have a sort order from the most recent going down to the oldest. I could turn that around for some reason if I wanted to. But look at this. Remember I had about 20 folders with dozens of folders inside those folders, inside those folders. And now they're all right here. And so at about this point, Mr. J here was going, oh my gosh, Google, you have messed up big time. I have spent 10 years organizing my folders, and you created this mystery thing called a home. And so without going any further, thinking there's no way I'm going to be able to find anything because this is ridiculous. I don't want to do it that way. So always do this when you're trying to figure out what the new change is. Go to settings, settings, and start page, home button. That's what was selected on that particular day because Google was very impressed and wanted to share that with me. I immediately clicked back to my drive and then went back, got out of settings, and it's still there. I'll just click on drive. So now it's back to the way it was normally. So again, Google's always trying to come up with new stuff. Maybe there's some virtue in having that home thing or whatever, but for me, I already know how to organize this, so I don't need that. But let's take a look at something else. Activity. Let's click on that. This is actually something kind of cool. Files with recent comments or requests that need your attention will appear here. Okay, so if Trainer T1 had worked on something and made a comment or on a comment on something that I had made, it would show up here. And I would imagine there'd be a little something here saying, hey, there's something in your activity here you got to deal with. That's pretty cool. What about workspaces? Create workspace. Well, this is kind of like what the priority thing was. It was like, hey, create a whole bunch of new folders and spaces and all of this. And we explored this in a class a couple of weeks ago when this first came out. And there was a point where they were trying to charge us money to create workspaces. Not sure exactly how that works, but here's what I'm going to say about all of this. Google will come up with new things like Priority. It lasted about 18 months, and then they got rid of it. And they replaced it with something totally different called Home. And then they came up with these other ones. This one's a good one. I like it. Just like spam down here. If somebody keeps spamming you, what's the definition of spam? They send you the same document 25 times in a row in a period of a week. That's spam. It'll end up here. It says files and spam won't appear anywhere else in Drive. Kind of like in your email. You just ends up in the spam folder and you have to go into the spam folder to find it. Well, that's kind of cool. And then activity we just talked about, if someone makes a comment on one of your documents, you can find it there. Workspaces, this is just another way to organize stuff. Wait a minute, isn't that what I just spent 10 years doing? Are there lots of ways you can organize this? Yeah, you could do last modified by me, last modified, last opened. I prefer to have it alphanumeric order by name ascending because I know where the dots end up, I know where the Z's end up, and the files are exactly the same. And every folder and file inside there is organized the same way. We saw that with the Word folder and the Excel folder. Excel jumped to the prime position because E comes before W. All right. So this seems kind of useless and confusing to me because of all this that I've been using for so long. Maybe you're brand new to all this. Maybe you haven't figured out how you want your Drive. Maybe Home will make sense for you. Maybe you'll want to spend some money and start doing workspaces or figure out what that is. Okay, that's great. Go ahead. All right. So we talked about spam, we talked about starred. These are just like folders. Recent, we went into that as well. Shared drive real quick. I'm just going to tell you because I'm a district IT trainer. We have a shared drive for all the IT trainers. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that pertains just to us IT trainers. And so our Sendy.net Google administrator created a whole separate folder for us, if you will. It's called the shared drive. And it's just for the IT trainers. But this is something that we all have. It's called Shared With Me. Let's click on that real quick. So you see up here, it says Shared With Me. That's different than when we're in Drive, right? It says My Drive. Always pay attention to that. That's important. Let's go back to Shared With Me. And so every one of these folders has been shared with me because you can see the little icon there with the person in it. But more importantly, it's in Shared With Me. And then all of these files down here too. But I want you to notice a bunch of dots. One dot, numbers getting bigger, and then we go all the way down to S, which is the highest in the alphabet. So this is also alphanumeric ordering by name. In fact, remember that when you set up your drive that way, it's going to be that way everywhere, and it's always going to make it easier for you to find things. Well, let's talk about this for a second. Whatever this stuff is that someone has shared with you, you cannot take it out of the Shared With Me folder. If you want something to show up in your drive, you cannot move it, at least as of about 4 years ago. Prior to that, you could move it, but then people would lose it and they'd say, oh, well, just go back to your Share With Me and find it there, but it's not there. So they changed the rules. And what are the rules? You cannot move it. I'm going to right click on this. And if I go down to organize, you'll notice move is grayed out because this practice folder is not more than 4 years old. So it's not grandfathered in. Okay. But what can I do? I can add a shortcut. So remember, it's a practice folder someone shared with me. I go to organize, and I can't move it to my drive, but I can add a shortcut. And when I do that, it's going to say, hey, where do you want to put it? Do you want to put it in starred? Do you want to put it everywhere? No. Let's see. What do I want to do? Oh, I just want to put it in my drive. Add. And remember the name of it. It's got like 6 dots, I think, in front of practice folder. So where's it going to end up? It's going to end up in front of the today's folder, but let's do it. Add. Let's see what it looks like. It says it was added to my drive. How come we don't see it? Oh, yeah, we're still in Shared With Me. Let's go to Drive. Bam. Where is it? It's right there. It's right there in the prime position. You'll notice it has this little icon right there. It's showing that it's actually not the folder. It's just a shortcut to that folder. And where does that folder reside? Shared With Me. It's right there. And we just simply right-clicked on it and we moved it in there. So let's take a look at this. There's something interesting. Here's a shortcut. There's a shortcut. These are actually folders that are inside folders, but I wanted them up here on my drive so I didn't have to go drill down to go find them. So keep that in mind for organizing. But look at this. I've been working this year with the San Diego Unified Psychologist Department. There's about 150 of them. We've done trainings and all through Google and all kinds of different things. And they at one point shared a folder with me for one of their trainings. And where did that end up? It ended up in the shared with me. And because it was brand new and it's not older than 4 years, I wasn't able to move it into my drive, but I could make a shortcut, which I did. But look, now it's grayed out. Why? Let's go back to shared with me. You will not see the psychologist department folder shared with me. Stated differently, they stopped sharing it with me because we were done with our trainings. We did it for about 5 months straight. That ended just this last month. And now it's not there anymore. And so why is it still in Drive? Well, let's take a look. Google decided rather than have it just disappear and then we scratch our head and go, wait a minute, didn't I have a psychologist department folder with all that stuff we were working on? Well, watch what happens when I click on it. How about right click? Request access, original folder. Okay, so what it's telling us essentially is, hey, guess what? They removed access for you. And yeah, you used to have it, so we left it grayed out. And if you think you need it back or something, or it was a mistake, you can just click this button. And whoever the owner of that folder was, and I know who it is, she works with all the psychologists, then she'd get a message that would say, hey, Mr. J is looking for access to that folder again. And then she can decide whether or not, just like I did with Trainer T1, John Lennon, and the rest of them, you can decide how you want to share it. So that's how that works. That's pretty cool. All right. This might be a good time just to go into settings real quick and just kind of see what's there. So I'm going to go to settings. And we already saw that we have choices for a start page. I definitely prefer this one. It was a nightmare to me when suddenly that changed. I was so grateful I could come into settings to fix that. But notice there's 3 tabs here, and we're in the general settings. So it talks about the storage that we have, so on and so forth. Workspaces, show workspaces. Oh, you mean in my drive where workspaces is, which I don't want to use. If I want to get rid of it, I can deselect that and it will disappear. I'm not going to do that because if you're brand new to all things Google and Google Drive, you're going to see that workspace. And I just wanted to show you that that's where you could get rid of it, which if this was just my account and I wasn't sharing this with anyone and showing people how to use it, then I would easily click that and make it go away. Remember when we first started out and it looked dark? Well, that's how we do it right there. We can change it back and forth from light to dark. And again, it has to do with appearance. Density, what is this? Well, if you've ever used a laptop and it's got a touch screen and you got tiny little icons and big fingers like I have, or just a really tiny screen, you can move the distance. You can change the distance between all of the icons by doing these different ones here. This one, of course, they're right next to each other. This one is a little more room between them. But actually, this is probably the middle one. I think this is the one where it's like spread out more. You'll have to experiment with that. I don't prefer to use a laptop with a touchscreen, probably because I have very large hands and it's awkward to use, but at least you can do that. All right, so now we've tried a number of these different folders here, kind of move things around or whatever. We're going to take a look at trash real quick, just because it used to be that you could store everything in trash. And then back in September 15th of 2018, and yes, I remember that well, because we had a banner across our drive for like 3 months saying, hey, guess what? We're changing the rules. What were the rules? Before, I could put 10,000 things in my trash just in case I needed it. I could go find it later. Google had millions, if not billions, of files being stored for no reason. So they changed the rules. And now they have this banner right here just saying it'll be trashed in 30 days. Unless you do something else to it. And just notice that I threw out this practice one. It happens to be a shortcut. But look at this. I could right click and delete it forever, or I could restore it. And it says restored. So if I go back to Drive, there it is again. So if you accidentally throw something away or you did the wrong thing or whatever, you can always go and change it. I'm going to go ahead and move it back to trash. It'll be deleted after 30 days. No problem. Boom. It's gone. So now we've talked about organizing all these different things, and we had seen up there in settings, real quick, that convert uploads to Google Docs editor format. If we check here, what does that mean? If you remember in the Today's folder that we had taken the Microsoft and the Adobe file, the two Microsoft files, Excel and Word, and then the Adobe PDF, and we had turned them into the Google Docs version. Yes, this is a Google Sheet, but it's actually the Google Docs version. It's just the language that they use. Okay. We did that by choice. Why? So we could keep the originals and store them. Why? Because we get free storage. Why not keep them? Maybe I could right click on those and download them later. No problem. But just know that you can go to settings if you want, and you don't save the originals. You just automatically, everything that you bring in that's Microsoft Word, Excel, PDF automatically turns into the Google version of it automatically. Well, that's kind of cool. You could do that there. I prefer, and of course, this is always about choice, right? I prefer to have my originals in case I ever need to download those, but that is certainly an option. Let's go back one more time and just take a look around a little bit more. If you want to work offline, you can do that. That means if you don't have an internet connection, what are we talking about? You have to have a browser connected to the internet. If you don't have an internet connection, you're offline. So you have an option rather, to be able to do some work in here. And then the minute you're back online, because now you have an internet connection established again, it will upload it. This is one of those choices. You can look into that later if you want. So show suggested recipients in the sharing dialog box. We saw that when I was trying to share that the trainers came up and other people I've worked with. If I don't want them to make suggestions, I could deselect that. If I want to change all these words that I'm reading in English to maybe Spanish or maybe French or some other language, I could do that. And I believe they let you have up to 3 different languages you can toggle between. So if you're bilingual or trilingual, you could do that. Well, that's pretty cool. All of these are available under General. Manage apps that has to do with like Google Docs and other apps that you can get, third-party apps and all that. We're not going to talk about that today, but let's talk about notifications. Okay, so you can see that I have selected email. Get all updates about Google Drive via email. So if somebody says, hey, Mr. J, I need access to, whatever, please give me permission to be able to work with this because you took my permission away, I'm going to get an email for that. There's a new one, Google Chat. If you're using Google Chat, this can show up via Google Chat. I don't use Google Chat, so that's not going to work for me. But I prefer to get emails because then I have a record of who I shared things with or when they requested stuff or whatever. So that's pretty cool. That's under notifications. So in case you're wondering how you get certain things, that's how you do it. If you deselect this, you're just going to get it in your browser. A little window is going to pop up in the corner saying, hey, somebody's requesting something. But I prefer to have an email as well. So I like that. So let's go back real quick. All right. So we talked about storage that we have unlimited. That's great. We talked about trash, spam, starred as favorites, recent. We did that, shared with me. This is what myself and the other IT trainers in the district share. This is my regular drive. If I want to go to my drive, I'm in the Today's folder right now. I could click here. There's another way to get there. There's always more than one way to do it. We talked about these other ones and all that. Well, let's talk about this real quick. So earlier, I had drilled down into Google Classes. And when I do, you're going to see that the navigation bar is going up here. But more importantly, all of this stuff is going to change. And so sometimes when we're drilling down into things and we're going into other stuff, and then we're going inside those and we're getting deeper and deeper, we can't even see the path. We have to go over here to figure out that we're in Google Classes, and then we went inside this one, then we went inside that one, and we went inside this one. And every time we navigate and we kind of go back and forth, or we click on these different ones, the screen keeps changing and it can be very overwhelming. Let's go back to Drive. Remember the Today's folder? Double click. I've got Adobe and Microsoft. In Microsoft, I've got other folders, Excel and Word. And what's inside there? Are there any more folders? Oh, no, we just have the Microsoft Word one. Okay. And then, of course, we have the Excel one inside the Excel folder. Let's go back to my Drive. Every one of those clicks change this. Well, you see this little expand button? And I also have one in my shared Drive one, but we're just going to use Drive right here. Remember, I've got, what is that? Looks like 22 folders here. Z at the end, Today's folder at the beginning. When I expand this, look at that. There's my Today's folder. And if I go down 22, there's the Google Classes one. I see the Z one at the end. Okay, and then back to shared Drive, share with me, recent, start, all that other stuff. Okay, well, what's this about? Oh, look, there's another expansion button. Let's go back up to the Today's folder. If I want to get into the Today's folder, I can click right there. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to Drive. What I'm trying to show you is you can explore without changing any of this over here. In other words, you don't have overload of colors and files and you've got so many choices that you forgot what you're looking for. So you can expand the Today's folder and say, oh yeah, inside the Microsoft one, I had a Word one. Oh, and did I have a folder inside the Word one? Let's expand it. See how the arrow's pointing down? There's no folder inside there. You notice how this is like an outline? This level here is all inside this one. These two at this level are both inside this one. And the Today's folder, as well as the other 21 of them, I think there's 22 altogether, are all inside of my drive. And so if we're looking at something and it doesn't quite fit, we can always drag over there because it's a Windows environment. We just get between the two fields and get that little left-right arrow and we can kind of move things around. And so it's going to be like that. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, then I can, if I want to see what's in the Word one, watch this. Click. There it is, that Word document. If I want to see what's inside the Excel folder, click. There's that one. Okay, I get this. This is pretty easy now. So now I can get in there. This is just another way to navigate. And more importantly, if I close this, and then when I open it back up again, it's opened up just like the last way it was, unless you reset it by doing Drive or hitting this one here or hitting this button up here. And this will also squish over as well, back to where it was by default. And so this time, if we want to be able to do the search thing, we'd have to start all over and kind of open it back up. But basically, we have these expand buttons that allows us to be able to open and close things, and we can navigate from over there without constantly changing all of this. So that can be very helpful. All right, we've gone through all of these things. We haven't done the search yet. This is pretty obvious. It's just going to take you, since you're already connected online, it's taking you to the Google support pages where you can go through a myriad of all kinds of information or whatever. We've talked about all these other things here, settings and whatnot. We saw this and how we can move things around. That's pretty cool. We haven't seen this one yet. We're going to see that in just a second. But before we do, let's check out Search and Drive. And by the way, remember, this is kind of like search modifiers or filters as well. Let's see what that looks like. So here I am, I open up my drive and I'm thinking, wasn't there a folder that was shared with me by someone? Which folder was it in? I'm not sure. I could always go to search, but look, they kind of just gave it to us right here. So maybe I'm looking for a folder. Wait a minute, maybe I'm just looking for a PDF. Okay, so maybe I'm looking for a PDF. Oh, wait a minute. Those aren't all PDFs. That's kind of interesting. Google, did you just mess up? It's taken us down to the first PDF. There it is. So we can see all of our folders are still there. Okay, so these are just filters to kind of get you to somewhere. So there's the PDF. Is that the one we want? Oh, look, there's another modifier. Okay, is it one of these people that own it? Is it someone inside San Diego Unified? Maybe it's someone outside of it. It's got a link. How about this? Oh, okay. So here's someone from San Diego Unified with sandy.net email address gave us all of these. Well, look, there's more modifiers. Oh, was it modified in the last 7 days? Was it a certain custom range? Was it last year? So these are filters that our drive can be organized by. So I'm going to clear the filters and bring it back. That's kind of interesting. If I'm inside here, I have the same ideas where I can start searching inside of Google Glasses. That's kind of cool. But our search kind of does a blanket search of everything. So I can just start typing out, it's going to do something there. Or I can do this advanced search. And then I can decide, what is it? Is it a photo, a PDF, a spreadsheet, all of that? I can make a decision. I'm just going to go ahead and say a PDF just for fun. Who's the owner? I'm going to say not owned by me. We'll see what happens there. If I remember some words from it, whatever, if I remember where it was, it's got a few different locations. I could pick one. I can't remember. Is it in favorites? Is it in the trash somewhere? When was it modified? I don't remember. I can't remember. So you can start, the more parameters you use to change, to modify your search, the more accurate your search is going to be. But right now I'm just looking for PDFs not owned by me, search. And here it says, what folder am I in? Search results. And they're all PDFs. And let's see if they're in alphanumeric order. They're not. So it's in some other kind of most relevant. There it is. What are our choices? Last modified. Okay, maybe that works better. Can we change the sort order? Yeah, we can. So do we still have other things here? Yeah, maybe it was one of these people or something that did it. How about this guy right here? That's me. Okay, so those are all there. Oh, look, the preview finally came in. Remember, it's going across the internet near the speed of light, little data packets, ones and zeros. It's going to eventually fill all of this out. Sometimes you can force it by hitting the refresh button. And oh, look, there's some certificates that I made or whatever for other people, so on and so forth. So that's the search. That's pretty cool. It works really well. But Google's given you a bunch of different ideas. We're going to talk about this button right here, View Details, okay? And we're going to do it in conjunction with the Today's folder. So I just selected it. And by the way, as soon as I selected it, this changed up here. Okay, share, download, move, trash, get a link. What's this? Download, rename, share. Okay, wait, that's the same as just right-clicking here. And then those buttons up there, we have all these different options. Okay, well, look, there's the folder information. There's details, there's activities. It's the same as this button here. So there's always more than one way to do it. Let's click on details. Now this Today's folder area opens up here. And look at this. We have two choices. We're right here, we're on details. So it shows us that this is shared, and it shows us who it's shared with. Okay, it's purple, it's got all that. That's great. And it says it's owned by me. And if I want to change who has access, I can do it right there. Wow, okay. Folder details in Google Drive. I'm the owner. May 3rd, it was modified, open, created, all on May 3rd, whatever. Description, add a description. Oh, this is the folder that I use for our Google Drive training on such and such a date. Great, there it is. That's impressive on its own. Remember how I said that all things Google, that you do not have to save anything, it's always being saved? Yeah, all those zeros and ones of data packets at near the speed of light going back and forth, every stroke of the keyboard, every click of the mouse, it's all being recorded in the server farms. And to prove it, look at this, activity. Activity for what, you're asking? The Today's folder, that's what we selected. And sure enough, we're still in it. What? Check this out. In the exact reverse order that things were done, you have a minute-by-minute, play-by-play action to everything. You moved an item to the Adobe folder. What was it? It was this PDF. I moved it into the Adobe folder at 2:21. All right. Oh, look, I created the Adobe folder at 2:20, just a minute earlier. What? You edited an item, the waiver form. Remember, we changed it from a PDF and turned it into whatever, and I made some changes to it. That's cool. Everything we did. Remember, you restricted access to an item, the famous author Word document. Trainer T1 John Lennon, he wasn't behaving, so we removed that. And we did that at 2:14 on May 3rd. Are you kidding me? All right. So you shared two items at this time, and you shared an item here. And what's amazing is, as we're going down this, and it doesn't matter if it's today, yesterday, 2 years ago, 15 years ago, if it still exists, you can always click on it. It'll open it up in your browser and take you right to it. Are you kidding me? Yep. Remember, this was the Microsoft one, and so we had added a horse to it. Okay. So we can go down this and we can go all the way back to the origins of all of this. And it says at 1:42 p.m. today is when I created the Today's folder, and I shared it with these individuals and made them editors. That's how all this started. That's pretty cool. And to do that, all I had to do was just select it, click that, or right click on it and do it. I'm going to right click on Google Classes because this one's a lot older than just one from today. I'm going to go down to here and I'm going to say details. It's going to open up again. It's going to say that I'm the owner. I haven't shared it with anybody. There's no share icon. Sure enough, the Google Classes one is this yellow color, kind of manila color. Last modified, open, created 2018. Wow. That's a long time ago, 6 years ago. How about this activity? Okay, on January 5th, 2024 at 9:29 a.m. and 11 seconds, I uploaded an item. This Excel file got put in the Google Classes one. On November 29th, I renamed an item. Yeah, that's interesting. And let's go down here a little bit. See our little elevator car. Let's go down to the bottom. So it says on January 19th, 2023, you edited an item in this. This is actually a website. Okay, that's kind of cool. But guess what? Oh, look, our elevator car keeps getting smaller. My point is, this was started back in 2018. And as it goes down, it just loads more. And every single thing that was done, you created and shared 4 items on this date at this time down to this second. This is what you did. And if this stuff still exists and I want to see it, I could click on it. If it still exists, then I can go right to it. There it is. Something from way back when. When was it? It was back in 2021 on October 28th. Wow. Are you kidding me? If I took some time and I kept scrolling, guess what? I would end up all the way down at the bottom when this thing was created, the folder and all of that, and every bit of history, probably 4,000 things, I'm guessing, that I did. And if any of these things, I mean, if I throw them out and they disappear, then obviously I'll click on it. It'll say, sorry, it's no longer available. Okay, we get that. But if it still exists, I can click on it and it will open up and we can see it. That's amazing. And to do that, all I had to do was simply right click on this and say information, or just click it once and then click info. And by the way, I can do that on every folder inside. In fact, let's go to today's folder. And remember, inside Microsoft, we made a Word folder. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's go back. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go down to information and I'm going to say activity just for this one. See, it's the Word folder. At 2:14 that happened, 2:11 that happened, all the way back to 2:07, created and shared an item in this folder. Okay, so there it is. So any folder, anywhere in your drive, you can get the information from it. So be considering now what department you work at or the school site you work at. And let's say you're responsible for sharing a folder with a bunch of different items, or you have a folder where a number of different people, like our school psychologists, like Diana that I work with, there might be a number of people that have to turn in a spreadsheet every week, or maybe they got to turn in a Google Doc. She can simply just go to the folder and find out when they turned it in or if they turned it in. No more emails back and forth. You just simply look at the information from that. So we have spent 2 hours doing a deep dive into Google Drive. We've gone over the entire user interface as it stands today. Just know that you might come back tomorrow. There might be 5 new features. Maybe this home button will disappear. I don't know. I'm thinking it might because it's kind of annoying to me, but maybe people like it and they'll keep it. Google gets to decide, not me. And remember, some of the features may or may not be here because of our Sandy.net Google administrator. He also makes decisions, and yes, it's a he at our district. And so these things are going to change. This button might change from red to blue, and then from blue to white. It might change back to another color some other day. They're always moving things around. They're trying to make it better, so remember that. And also remember, when you're working in anything Google, especially Drive, and you go up to your Word document and you put the horse, picture in there or whatever, and then you go back to your drive and you don't see the horse picture, it might take a while because that information has to go back and forth to the Google server farms at near the speed of light. So be patient. Trust your instincts of what you're doing. Just remember that Google's pretty good at making things intuitive. I mean, how hard was it to figure out that starred was favorites and that maybe there was a copyright issue? That's not that hard. Recent's pretty self-explanatory. Spam, trash, all of that. Activity was brand new just 2 months ago. That's pretty obvious once you take a look at it. So they're trying to make things easier for you. So at this point, we've gone through Google Drive in a very thorough manner. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming to learn with us today. If you have colleagues and people that you work with that need this information, share it with them. Let them know that these trainings are out there that they can come to live, or you can come to a workshop, an open lab, and be able to work on whatever it is you're working with. And just remember, we also have all of our YouTube videos, and the link to that is available on the email that was sent to you today. But that's our San Diego Unified Office Skills Training YouTube channel with all of those classes. And just know that we are updating these trainings all of the time. In fact, I'm working on a new Google Drive one that will come out with all of the new features, so it will reflect today. And anytime I'll just mention real quick that you're going to go on Google and search for a YouTube video and it says, oh, look, this is exactly what I want to learn about, Google Drive. If that video is 8 years old, the user interface you're looking at will look nothing like what our Drive looks like today. So keep that in mind. So thank you so much for coming to learn with us today. We'll see you next time.